cool and super useful for everybody. We're going to start off with a session with Claudia Jackson with the SiiHasin bike program, and that's going to be amazing. That's going to be coming up in just a couple minutes. We're also going to hear from Martin Begay with Navajo Parks. There's going to be some really inspiring and cool updates about what's going on with the parks. We're going to have a discussion about land, which is a really huge issue, obviously, when it comes to trails and outdoor rec on the nation. We'll hear some success stories from some chapters around the nation. We'll hear a few words from Vice President Nez. Terry Yazzi's on tap, Candace John, Randolph Curley. It's going to be a great day. So glad you chose to join us, and we really look forward to having a really productive and interesting day. One of the things I want to mention, at 2:15 today, we're going to have a very open-ended discussion titled, Where Do We Go From Here? And where do we go from here is for anybody who would like to chime in. We want this to be a conversation. This is not going to be another presentation or lecture from anybody. This is just going to be a conversation with you and other folks in the meeting today. So if you're interested in that, you can hit us up on Facebook. Just send us a note and say, hey, I want to join, so send me the link, and we'll go ahead and send you the Zoom link, and you can join that conversation from 2:15 till 3 o'clock. That'll be right after Vice President Leiser's presentation. So that's going to be 2:15 this afternoon. If you want to join the Where Do We Go From Here conversation, just give us a heads up and let us know. All right. Going to give the mic over to Aaron, who is going to introduce our first and very amazing presenter. All right, Aaron.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for being back here again. So the first person I'd like to introduce, her name is Claudia. She is from Indian Wells, and she's been an amazing person. She does a lot of amazing things on bikes, especially with the girls out there, with the Girl Scouts. So let's give it up for Claudia.
Good morning. Ya tehebena sheya sinajini nishlan kia ani bashichin twitchini dashanella hanagani dashiche do Claudia Jackson Ewinshia Indian Wells and Enosha. And today I'm going to talk about the SiiHasin bike program that I started in Indian Wells, Arizona. And I'm just going to share my screen right now. I don't know, can you see my screen? Can you see? Okay, I'm sorry. So I started the SiiHasin bike program, and our mission was to aim to create community that empowers our youth and adults through supported bicycling. The goal is to be the hub for getting people off the couch and away from electronic devices to enjoy amazing red dirt. Our desire is to be the community hub for health, wellness, and fun on the Navajo Nation. Our program is supported by Dinewi Can, a nonprofit organization working in the southwestern section of the Navajo Nation. In the beginning, 2012 to 2015, there was a lot of uncertainty. I battled a lot. How do we get bikes? Who fixes bikes? And how do I partner with chapters, law enforcement, health programs, and community members? And of course, I had no budget. Our first donation on bikes was through the Navajo County Sheriff's Office, and my brother was my first mechanic. In 2016 to 2018, still uncertainties, although we were able to move on to getting bike donations through Navajo Yes and a bike project. Thank you, Navajo Yes. And I gained 2 bike mechanics, Toby and Manny. And I also became consistent with partnering with local chapters, health programs, law enforcement, EMTs, community members, and with the Hopi tribe. Still no budget, but with no budget, I was able to get a lot of volunteers and support from various programs throughout the Navajo Nation. So 2019 to current, that uncertainty had to become commitment. Those that know me and that have participated in our bike rides, I've always, after every ride, I will always say, well, I don't know if we're going to be back next year. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing this. I don't know if it became something that people knew me as like, well, Claudia never knows. So I really had to commit in 2019. And with that commitment, I was able to move into wanting to create something for our community and to get more kids on bikes. But my big important commitment was to getting more girls and more women on bikes. And in order for me to do that, I had to find a way. So through the encouragement of local delegate, not local, but council delegate Amber Crotty, I was able to start a Girl Scout troop in Indian Wells, working with the school. And that was how I was able to get more girls on bikes, and then creating a ladies bike group from the parents of the Girl Scout troop. I was able to get more women on bikes. And through this, how did I get bikes? I contacted an organization I met at a bike festival in Flagstaff, a women's bike festival. And I sent them a letter, and within 30 minutes they responded, and they just said, we love what you're doing and we would love to donate bikes. So they donated bikes to our Girl Scout troop, bikes and gear, and with the local bike shop that they work with. And this group is from California. So it was amazing that 20 bikes came, 15 of them were brand new bikes, and the others were in pretty good condition donated bikes. We had a huge opening for that. And then I noticed that the moms of our girls wanted to ride bikes. There was limited bikes that I would have that I just bring as loaners for them to ride. And I went back to Project Bike Love and I mentioned, our moms want to get on bikes too. They came back again the following year and donated, I think it was 20 more bikes. So that was how I was able to work with getting more families on bikes. And with that, I was able to create a youth bike team that participated in NICA in the past 2 years, and then also part of the bike series called the Mountain Bike Arizona Association. I was able to create clinics, workshop for basic bike repairs and maintenance. And just last year, I started a bike shop called Audible Cycles. Still from 2019 to current, that commitment, I still stand behind my commitment, and I partnered with our local school. I also sit on the school board of the Holbrook Unified School District. So for me, it was a great way to bring a bike program into our local school at Indian Wells and also at Holbrook High School. Our elementary school got the Writing for Focus grant. And then we also got a grant through the Outright Fund to build a bike trail at the school. And also the mountain bike, the MBAA also donated some funds to help with the bike trail. I just learned last month that we also got a Cycle Kids grant. And tomorrow we're actually doing bike building at the school with some of the kids and their parents. And then we're bringing in Project Bike Tech to our Holbrook High School as a CTE class. It'll be the first CTE Project Bike Tech in Arizona at our local high school. I also had to commit to media, a lot of exposure to media. I was able to bring in a film crew at our last tour to SiiHasin last summer, and they were able to screen our film at their own festival. And just yesterday, they told me that they wanted to screen it at the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival on March 5th. So I'll be, I guess we'll be headed over there again. And then it also required my commitment to the bike program required some partnership outside of Navajo. And I have a big sponsorship coming through with Giant Bicycles. And then also with this, and also with the 11th hour project, which is a a funding program through the Schmidt family, that the family that started Google. They funded our program for 2 years, which is awesome and amazing because we get to continue to do what we do. And we're no longer, we used to call ourselves the bike missionaries because we did this all voluntarily. Everything came out of pocket. I had to find odd jobs here and there just to fund some of the things that we needed. So, so a lot of this was, commitment from myself, the passion I have, and then walking the talk. I also had to bike with everybody, learn the biking term, the whirl, and then just to have fun. So I wanted to share, a little bit more of the impact of what our summer bike ride has on families and kids. So I wanted to show this film that they did last summer. They'll give you an idea of the impact of bicycling in our section of the Navajo Nation.
Something that I find appealing about the bike is that it's an extension of me. I can manipulate this object to get me where I need to go.
If I had parts to all these bikes, he would fix all these bikes.
Doing this, it kind of gives me purpose. It's what I'm supposed to do.
We've come far. In the 9 years that we've been doing this, we've come a long, long way. I started working with our local leader, and I had suggested to him, hey, why don't we ride bikes through our community, bringing awareness of suicide prevention. Here in this community, the suicide rate had really gone up. In our tribe, talking about death is a taboo. So talking about suicide at a community level, we're always asked, why do you have to talk about that? However, on the bike ride, when we talked about suicide, it was more about how you're strong and you're resilient. If you can conquer that one hill, you can conquer anything in life. Our ride was called SiiHasin. And SiiHasin means hope. We've lost a lot of people. And the purpose of our bike ride is to support each other, right? Go Bryson, you got it, go Bryson!
She was born to do this, and I just admire that so much. We all know that we're writing for a purpose. It's beautiful, it's powerful, it's definitely something positive in our community.
Let's line up. You can be okay? Cool? Our first year, we had 6 people. And it just grew from there.
It's like a whole new family. They just cheer you on. They support you. They love you. They encourage you. is something that it brings joy to my heart. I went through domestic violence, and I'm also a survivor of cancer. To ease my pain, I started writing. Sometimes I want to give up, but with my support with my kids and the rest of our biker family is what I call them. But I continue to go. When you go through life, if you're down, you have to pick yourself up.
There was a little tear through the ground, and I guess my tire went in it, and then it crashed. Yep.
You know, when I ride, it numbs my pain. Going downhill is like you're flying. You want to be part of the wind, just be free. I want to be there for my kids. I want to be there for them. I want to be healthy, be able to keep up with them.
By biking, by pushing herself more. My mom changed a lot. She started becoming a more open person. She started talking more, laughing more.
Through the SiiHasin ride, there was a lot of healing. When you come up to these obstacles in life, just like on the bike ride, that once you push through it, you know you can always push through it. And I totally believe in that because I've seen it for my own self.
Our first year, when we did the bike ride, nobody knew how to fix bikes. If it weren't for Toby and Manny as the bike mechanics and for them to have a space to fix bikes, we wouldn't have this program.
There was a few years we had so many riders. Me and Toby, it was like NASCAR. One of those years we fixed over 250 bikes from start to finish. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's awesome coming back every year and watching it grow, and also watching the same people come back. Watching the kids grow, the families grow. It's awesome.
I had first heard of this bike ride a couple years ago, and it was my understanding that suicide awareness, it's such a topic that people don't talk about, really. Being Diné people, it's something that you're not supposed to address. You don't, there's just a spirit within suicide. You don't want to bring it into your home. You don't want that to begin to affect you. But as a therapist with Division of Behavioral Mental Health Services, just knowing the importance of it. For myself, I see it as I don't want it just to be swept under the rug and ignored, and you just don't address it because that doesn't do anything. My dad, unfortunately, he died by suicide earlier this year. So I've been thinking about him throughout this bike ride.
The whole biking revolution here on the reservation is amazing to see.
Look at this.
Yeah, go on, just get it. Get it. Yeah, go on.
You know, we've traveled over, 300 miles, I think. And just checking in with everyone, make sure everyone's okay.
It's good to kind of hear like how you guys are feeling at this point.
Man, I love watching all these young folks every year go through all these things. You see it in their faces, and then they get up and go anyway, regardless.
It's so touching. I'm trying to set examples for my boys and know that anything is possible.
Yes! We did it!
It really touches me because I've been through a lot. It's really awesome, especially when you go downhill. That's what everybody says, make way, move off the way, Vivian's coming down.
Life does have its challenges, but we ride through these hills, these obstacles. We can overcome it together as a family. That's how I see all of us here together as a family.
I realized the bike ride is bigger than what I thought. I just thought I was bringing people together to ride and have fun. It was bigger than that. I didn't think I was making that kind of an impact in people's lives. Some of these families don't realize how much they've encouraged me to keep going.
We all definitely go through our challenges these days, and it's always up to us to overcome challenges and inspire others that there's always a way. And getting outdoors is one of our best and brings us peace and hope to overcome our challenges. And our children are always watching, and we must always include them. So we have another presenter. We're going to watch a couple of videos from the Division of Economic Development from the Navajo Tourism Department. Yeah.
Yad she Candace John.
Oh, yeah. Some great videos there from across the nation. Very cool. All right, so we're going to introduce our next couple presenters. They are going to be discussing a really important topic on the idea of trails and outdoor recreation, and that topic is land and land status and land withdrawal and land consent, user consent for land use. There's a lot of complicated issues when it comes to land and how that works. So we have a couple of folks here who are going to be presenting, one from the Window Rock tribal perspective, and that's Eti Anderson-Abasta from the Navajo Land Department. And we also have with us a gentleman from Page, Arizona, from the Chi chapter, who's going to be giving us the perspective from a grazing official, and that's Tyler Manson. So we're going to hear from both the tribal level as well as the local grazing level. So it'll be very interesting and hopefully some very practical, useful information. If you do have questions for either Tyler or for Etty, please feel free to write those in on the Facebook page, and we'll share those with our two presenters. Since Etty is here and standing right in front of us, we'll go ahead and start with her, and then we'll go to Tyler, and then we'll have kind of an open floor for some discussion. So, Etty, come on over, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. First of all, let's be correct, Tom. It's not the land department. It's the General Land Development Department. So I recently began my employment there. And so my name is Etty Anderson Basta, Tenabithni Inshla, Hushklishni Bushishchin, Tutne Sutni Dashanella, Billigana Dashache. I am from Sawmill, Arizona, and as I shared, I just recently took the position, so I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to one of our more seasoned staff, Miss SiiHasin. Go ahead, Stevie.
Good morning, everybody. My name is SiiHasin. I am the leasing agent for the General Land Development Department. We're located in St. Michael's. I'm going to be going over the slideshow with you guys on how to obtain a land withdrawal. So I'm going to be sharing this. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so like I said, we are located in St. Michael's. We're under the Division of Natural Resources. So most people ask what you need a land withdrawal for. It could be anything as far as a supermarket, a recreation center, a hotel. It's basically anything that needs land clearance. So we do the clearance for the land only, but if you build above that, that either goes into business regulatory or under a lease. So let's see here. So we do have a checklist. It consists of 6 items. That would be a letter of application or cover letter. You need to include the intended use of the land and exact acreage of the proposed undertaking. Majority of the time, you just kind of give an introduction of what you're going to be doing the land withdrawal for. It's always best to include your acreage or footage that you'll be using, the legal survey or GPS coordinates at each point indicating the location and total acreage to be withdrawn. If you don't have time to do a legal survey, or if you're in the process of getting your legal survey, you can always go onto Google and do GPS coordinates. You could do it at each section corner or each corner that you are gonna withdraw. So most times it's not just an exact square. Sometimes it'll be different shapes. So you could do GPS points at each point within whatever shape you're gonna take. The supporting chapter resolution, on that resolution, it does need to include the required land withdrawal language. It is on our website at www.gldd.org. It is highlighted in pink. And that just kind of gives you the option to kind of do any type of community development. There's a letter from the grazing officer stating that there's no valid grazing permittees in the area, or if there is valid grazing permittees that are going to be affected by the land withdrawal, the grazing officer will have them sign consent and attach a cover letter for that requirement. So by submitting those 4 requirements above that I just mentioned, it allows you to reserve the area for 5 years while you obtain the environmental documentation, which is the BRCF, the Biological Resource Compliance Form from Navajo Fish and Wildlife, in the Cultural Resource Compliance Form from Navajo Heritage and Historic Preservation Department. During that time of the 5 years, you cannot construct, operate, or maintain during that time period. So these two items will be within the Navajo Nation. These are forms that we are very familiar with. So as I mentioned, the letter of application, it's you just mentioned the main point of the contact for their land withdrawal, meaning if it's just one person or a department, an entity, it's always best to point out who is going to be the main contact in case there's any corrections that need to be done or any clarification that needs to be made. We can reach out to that person. As mentioned, include the intended use of the land and the acreage. Your legal surveys, a survey that is completed by a certified legal surveyor with a corresponding legal description, matching the total acreage to be withdrawn as requested in the letter of the application. So at the beginning of your cover letter, if you mention that you're going to be withdrawing 1.5 acres, your survey needs to reflect 1.5 acres. Chapters mainly are the ones who submit coordinates, but as I mentioned, you can submit coordinates while you're waiting for your legal survey. But as we wrap up the land withdrawal, we'll need that legal survey if you're not a chapter. This is an example of the survey with the legal land description. It is a little fuzzy, but you see here that this area was withdrawn. And here's the legal land survey or legal description. And it's signed by the certified engineer. This is an example of the GPS coordinates. So at each point they went and took the coordinates and they recorded it on the submission. On the chapter resolution, when you're asking for a chapter resolution, you're not asking, or you are asking for support, not approval. By that, we mean that you're going out and you're notifying the community that this is the project that is going to be happening there, and that you just want to do your due diligence of notifying the community that this is what's going to be taking place. In the process of seeking a chapter resolution, it is an act of courtesy. So like I mentioned, you're just notifying the community, and at that time you're able to answer any questions that the community may have. The resolution will need to include the legal language highlighted in the land withdrawal regulations. And at the bottom, it does begin like, it's really basic. It just covers all of the chapters by that language. So here at the bottom, you see the blank chapter hereby supports and recognizes this land withdrawal for. You just basically take that required language and just insert the name of your chapter. The grazing permit consent is collected from all valid grazing permit holders that might have their land use areas negatively impacted by the proposed development. If there is no valid grazing permit holders in the area, a justification letter can be written by the grazing official or land board member stating just that. When gathering the grazing permittee consents, this document should be concurred by General Land Development Department's land support agent, so that a neutral entity can explain the development stipulations in English and, if need be, in Navajo, to ensure that all parties impacted are contacted and fully understand the undertaking of the proposed project. So here's an example of the consent form that we use. It's pretty much no expected damages. They usually sign there, and there's sometimes a witness. Then the grazing committee or land board member will sign there, and then our field agent from the General Land Development Department will sign at the very bottom. So at all times you have the affected party or the land, the permittee, the land board member or grazing committee, and then you have the third person there who is from GLAD, the land support agent. So at that point in the application process, the application can turn in the 4 aforementioned documents to retain the swath of land designated for development to pursue the environmental documents. This option can be exercised to provide to funding sources that the applicant has site control or to keep any new development in their proposed area at 0. So that means that if you do not have those 4 required documents to do a 5-year designation, at any time someone else who is interested in the same swath of land can go in there and withdraw that same area if they provide those 4 items. So it's always best to do just the focus on the 4 required items before going to get your environmentals. So this is an example of a letter that Mr. Holona did do for an approval. It was for 1 acre for a community cemetery. Mr. Holona does have delegation of authority that was given to him by RDC in 2015. So the biological resource compliance form clarifies that the project will not negatively impact any endangered flora or fauna. This form will also need the precise location and acreage being applied for to match the consistency of all other application documents in the packet. At times, this form will only be issued at a certain time of the year in order for the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife to thoroughly assess whether or not the species in question will be impacted. So on the biological resource compliance form, your legal survey, your consent, your supporting chapter resolution, and your cover letter, every document that is within the land withdrawal needs to reflect whatever acreage or footage that you're going to be withdrawing. This is an example of a biological resource compliance form that was done. And then at the bottom, the representative did sign because they understood and accepted the conditions of the compliance and acknowledged that the lack of signature may be grounds for the department not recommending the above described project for approval to the tribal decision maker. This is something that Mr. Holona always looks at, and our environmental specialist who does do an environmental compliance determination, they do look for this signature on every form. The cultural resource compliance form is a compliance form that allows the reviewers to see that there will be no adverse impact to any site or resources the Navajo Nation deems sacred or protected. This form also illustrates that the federal and tribal archaeological laws and regulations will not be infringed upon or violated. Any comments or conditions outlined on this form will need to be followed precisely for the proposed development to commence. So here's an example of a cultural resource compliance form. And on here, they do mention that it will involve construction of a billboard. So it was 5,000 square feet, and it did also kind of go outside that. And there is a buffer that's included usually, and it's down here where it's total acreage inspected. And then it's signed by one of the representatives from Heritage and Historic Preservation Department. So after you've compiled all the required forms, you may submit them to the General Land Development Department so they may be reviewed for consistency and assurance. Once the application is deemed sufficient by GLAD staff, an approval letter will be drafted with stipulations if they apply before the Navajo Land Director approves the designation by signing the letter that allows you to operate, construct, and or maintain the designated area. And that's when basically it's pretty much where you can actually put a shovel in the ground. So usually after that, a lot of people ask what's next after you get the approval of the land withdrawal. If it's a business site lease, a general lease, or a master lease that needs to be implemented, you can begin the leasing process with our department. Usually it just depends on what type of activity will be going on at that site. Sometimes we'll reach out to the Navajo Nation Department of Justice to draft a specialized lease for that area. And then it'll be added to the application with the land withdrawal documents, and then it'll be routed through what's called the Navajo Nation Electronic 164 system. It's an executive official review that will go through several different departments and then will be decided on by the Resources and Development Committee. If there are any questions that were not answered in the presentation, you're always welcome to reach out to the General Land Development Department at 928-871-6447. You can also go to our website, which is www.gldd.org. And all our contact information is on there. At any time that you do call our office, any staff that answers the phone should be able to address your questions. So we are located in St. Michael's. We do prefer that you email or call us before stopping by. We are next to Navajo Nation Oil and Gas. This is what our building does look like. We are on the first floor, on the bottom, on the south side of the building. And I'm finished.
Right. Hey, we've got a question from the audience. Actually, two questions from John Yazzie. His first question is, can you clarify the GPS requirement for a trail? Example, using square foot acreage, vice line coordinates. It seems like withdrawing land for a trail is different from withdrawing a whole area. Is this a consideration in the application? So that's John's first question. And then the second question is something that is really big topic, and he's has a recommendation that's also a bit of a question. He says all land withdrawals should start with grazing. You can spend years going through the process, fees for ARC and bio surveys, only to be denied by the grazing permit holders. Doesn't seem to make sense to have grazing as the final authority. Thanks for the information. So I guess there's two questions if you can touch on it. The first one is about the GPS requirement. If you could just kind of clarify that a bit. And then the second one is there any consideration of possibly flipping the order of the process so that the grazing permit approval, the consent, would be at the beginning of the process rather than at the end? So I'll just turn those over to you if you want to tackle those two, and then we'll go over to Tyler.
There has been a walking trail that was approved in 2017, which is the only one that was done. If you can see my screen here, it was each point, did go around this area. So they did number each point, and then they did provide GPS coordinates at each point, which was accepted and approved. Like I said, it doesn't matter what type of shape it takes. It just, as long as we have those GPS points, we can map them out. So it doesn't matter if it was a triangle, an actual square, circle, oval. We just need those GPS points. It did mention that there was, I believe, a 5 foot, it was 2,823 feet long by 5 feet, which came out to 0.3 acres. So this is how it looked for the walking trail. And it was right outside the inscription house chapter boundary. So this is why they had to come and get a land withdrawal for that walking trail.
Have you seen this?
I'm sorry?
That's a great example of a really good trail right there. It's how we can.
Okay. I guess we could leave this up while everybody can see it. I hope that address that question. For the next question, the 4 items that we do require to do the 5-year designation, it includes the grazing permittee consent. It doesn't have to go in that order. You just have to collectively compile your application together like that. So you're more than welcome to go out and reach out to your grazing official or land board member to start that process to get the consent first before going to do a legal survey or doing the supporting chapter resolution, or you can do them all at once. It doesn't matter as long as those 4 documents are compiled together before they come to our office. It doesn't matter which order they come in.
All right, cool. That's good. Question, and I think it is a good thing to consider that the order is not dependent on. It's kind of dependent on what order you want to go. So cool. Thanks for sharing that. Stevie, SiiHasin, thanks for going through that process with us. And we may have other questions, so if you wanted to just stay close. That was an awesome map. One of the presenters here, Clara Kelly, was involved in doing the archaeological survey for that Sabikin project. So I know she was probably excited to see that photo. And that was a very successful trail project. We're going to hear from those folks in just a little bit, actually. Their chapter manager will be here. So, yeah. All right. I think we'll go ahead and switch over to Tyler at this point. Tyler, like I said, is a grazing official at SiiHasin chapter on the northwestern side of the nation. So, Tyler, the floor is all yours, sir.
Tyler Manson is here. We beton schneidom, sind the Jenny Chin, Haro, not Ejet Kapahanda Shitche, Haro, the Hunt Dash Chin, Dashanella. Just like to thank Tom and Elsa reaching out to me and allowing me to speak to the individuals that are online throughout the Navajo Nation. I do feel like the conference that you guys are hosting is well needed in order to inform the Navajo Nation on all the recreational sites that the Navajo Nation does have to offer. For me, since I am from the SiiHasin chapter, we have a lot of recreational sites that we do provide not just to the Navajo Nation, but to the world. The SiiHasin chapter is the home of Antelope Canyon. It is the home to pretty much Lake Powell, Antelope Point Marina, Horseshoe Bend, Waterhole Canyon. So we have a lot of different canyons to offer. And with that, it seems like we have a lot of opportunities for individuals to practice grazing within District 1 and District 1-4, which SiiHasin is. But I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my slideshow and just pretty much go over firsthand knowledge on how the Navajo Nation got so vast and why we do have the current system that we do have. So as you can see, this is the modern day Navajo Nation within the flag. Pretty much you can see the tan parts within the flag, and that's how the Navajo Nation did expand. But you can also see within the brown area, and that's the original reservation by the boundaries of the Treaty of 1868. So through the Treaty of 1868, we were only given this area as a reservation, that small square area as a reservation. But as time started to go on by executive order, the Navajo Nation started to expand. I kind of already introduced myself. Again, people 20s and a Jenny, Kapahando, Desh. But I guess one of the questions that we should focus on is, how did the Navajo Nation get so huge? And where did the Navajo Nation actually start to begin? As you can see, Denepikea, it's pretty vast, it's pretty huge, and the boundaries are pretty much based upon sacred sites throughout the Navajo Nation, like Sisna, Jin, Todze, Osli, Bensa, and these different water formations that surround the Navajo Nation. They're pretty much our traditional boundaries. These boundaries keep us safe from all those elements that are pretty much out there. As you know, that the Navajo Nation, we really don't experience a lot of earthquakes. We don't experience different storms that pretty much the world does get, tornadoes, hurricanes. So these sacred sites is what keep us safe within the Navajo Nation. In 1864, pretty much everybody does have an understanding. The Long Walk did occur to where the Navajo people, they were taken captive by the United States government. We did take a long journey to Fort Sumner, and we were there for 4 years while our people were suffering. There's a lot of stories to where the Navajo women, the kids, they were in hunger, they were impoverished. And the only way that these Navajo women were able to actually provide for their kids is they had to sell themselves to the soldiers in order to get a little more rations of flour, a little bit more rations of rice or beans. So it was a hard time for the Navajo people. But in 1868, the United States government, they pretty much understood that it was costing the government too much to actually feed individuals that were in captivity, including the Navajo people. So there was a signing of Treaty of 1868, and just like I did state, within that treaty, it did give the United States government different obligations, such as education for our youth, providing healthcare for the Navajo people, and also giving the Navajo people a reservation to reside on. But within the original treaty, like I did state, within that small brown area on the Navajo Nation flag, that was the only land that is promised to us. But as time started to expand, the reservation started to expand. But as we were released from Fort Sumner, the Navajo people were provided with livestock from the United States government, whether if it was sheep, goats, but pretty much majority of Navajo families, they were provided with sheep, with ewes and a ram. The main reason why that was given to the Navajo people, because the only reason why the Navajo people were submissive to the United States government is because of the scorch and burn policy. So pretty much these different soldiers, Navajo BIA agents, they went out to the cornfields, they went out to people's livestock, and they destroyed it. They destroyed homes, cornfields, and they destroyed livestock. And the Navajo people had nothing to go to. They had no way or means of actually providing for themselves. As you can see within this map, there is the original Treaty of 1868, which is in the purple. And by executive order, the land started to expand. The Navajo reservation started to expand. And one thing to note is the main reason why it continued to expand is because of livestock. These individuals that were provided livestock from the United States government, they started to grow. These 2 sheep turned into 4. These 4 sheep turned into 16, and they started to grow, started to multiply. The Navajo Nation, that small square, was starting to become stressed because of the overwhelming need of grazing land. So the United States government started to realize the Navajo people, they're becoming prosperous again. They're starting to grow. Their livestock are starting to grow. The people are starting to grow. So they do need more land for the reservation to be prosperous, to provide for the livestock out there. So by executive order, by the signature of the United States president, the Navajo Nation started to expand, started to grow. So the Navajo Nation started to grow, started to expand. And looks like I didn't even, I'm sorry. I had a presentation and I guess I didn't do the share screen at all. But overall, these herds started to grow, they started to expand, and as you can see within this map right here, I'm sorry, I thought I was doing the share screen, but I failed to push the button. But as you can see, 1868, the reservation started to expand by executive orders, all these yellow and red spots. And by the 1930s, some of these families, their herds of sheep, of cattle, of horses were going into the hundreds. They were going into the thousands. So some type of management system had to be implemented. And when livestock reduction that was implemented by BIA, some of these methods that were actually done, they were pretty much inhumane. A lot of these Indian agents, they actually opened fire to herds of flocks of sheep, herds of cattle, horses. Sometimes these Indian agents will build a big bonfire and throw these flocks of sheep in there. And there was pretty much a lot of families that were devastated as they worked hard, restoring themselves, restoring their family, restoring their prosperity from Fort Sumner. And this is where the implementation of grazing permits were given to individuals that continue to graze. So each family that had livestock, they were pretty much asked to present their livestock again to these Indian agents. So depending on the livestock that was shown to these Indian agents, that's the number of units that were issued to them. So say if a family had 300 sheep before the livestock reduction, and then they were forcibly reduced down to 60, these individuals were told to show their 60 heads of sheep again. But there was a lot of distrust with the United States government to where a lot of these families, they only presented like 20 sheep, 40 sheep, rather than their 60 sheep that they were left with. So there was a lot of families that were in distrust. But this is a current system that we do have back in the 1940s. So a lot of these grazing laws, a lot of these grazing regulations, the CFRs, the 167 CFR 25, they were implemented back in 1940. So a lot of these grazing laws, they're outdated. They do need to be, I guess they do need to be updated. But when it comes to the Navajo Nation, pretty much relying on the consent of grazing permittees was the lawsuit due to Tucson Electric versus Denison. There was electric company, Tucson Electric and Gas, that they had different projects on the Navajo Nation, and pretty much they were working on the land, they were installing different features, utilities, and all of a sudden there was a disagreement upon the land users, the Denisons, the grazing permittees. So it did go into the court, and the Navajo Nation Supreme Court did, in their opinion, they said grazing permittees, land users, they do have an interest when it comes to the land. And then that's where pretty much grazing rights and consent was established. So pretty much when it comes to any type of business site leases, home site leases. You do need the advisement of a grazing official in order to proceed on with these different type of land withdrawals. Like within the community of Lichi, we're a growing community. Every year, the community is continuing to expand. But once a community starts to expand, it starts to stretch out into different grazing areas. And pretty much a lot of people, they still continue to practice grazing. They still continue to herd their flock of sheep or the cattle, horses. And pretty much when it comes to that, there's kind of a conflict. But we have to continue to work as individuals and continue to validate what the Navajo Nation Supreme Court did recognize as grazing permittees as an interest within the lands. As you can tell, within the Lichi community, there is a lot of development. It's a growing interest throughout the Navajo Nation, because at one point in time, there was the Navajo generating station that did play an impact, not just economically, but also environmentally. It did take a toll on our lands to where it's this past winter, we did even receive a snowfall. But there are other interests out there, a lot of solar companies that do have interest in coming in and building solar farms throughout the Lichi area, just due to the KV lines that are in existence. Then also we do have a lot of tourism opportunities, a lot of canyons, and a lot of these permittees are starting to realize the tourism is a great opportunity for them to survive economically. But other than that, I can go ahead and take any questions.
Oh yeah, Tyler, that was awesome. Great history, great perspective on land and grazing. Raiji's kind of monitoring questions, so if anybody has questions that you want to send in, feel free to do so at this time, either for Stevie or for Tyler. So anybody, Raiji, out there?
It is very important that the grazing consent or a letter stating from the grazing official to pretty much state that these individuals need to be approached for consent, or that the area is vacant because the land is not suitable for grazing. Because if an individual starts to work on their surveys, these surveys companies started to go out into this area and no consent is established, it will lead to conflict.
How would you recommend if a community or a group is interested in doing trails in their area, how would you best approach the grazing folks, the local land users, local grazing families? How would you approach them in order to get their support for a trail in their area?
That's a great question, Tom. As you know, Lichi is pretty vast, and there's a lot of trails that are already in existence throughout Lichi. There's a lot of canyon trails. There's a lot of trails that lead to a lot of beautiful sites within the Lichi area. When it comes to land user consent, it's pretty much becoming getting an understanding between the two parties, the land user and the individual that wants to develop. I think one thing that the land user wants is pretty much that you're there to help them, to monitor the area, to protect the area, because that's all pretty much land users and grazing permittees, is to protect the area from, like, there's a lot of illegal dumping that is going on. There is a lot of individuals that pretty much they abuse the area. Pretty much I have been seeing, like within the Lychee area, near canyon edges, where people would actually change the oil. So if there are individuals out there that are pretty much trail walking or running, they can call the individuals that are responsible for, I guess you can bring in these individuals to justice or reporting them.
That's great. And it seems like there's maybe a little bit of education we can do. And again, this could go for either one of you. And Tyler, you probably have some experience with this just in your community, just in terms of, how do we let folks know, hey, the trail community, most of the folks listening right here, for example, they're not the type that are going to go change their oil right on the edge of the canyon cliff. That they're the type that really want to respect and take care of the land. And it seems like a lot of times in communities, folks have misperceptions about what you guys are, who you guys are, that, they bring up concerns about littering, that, if we develop the trails, there's going to be trash, there's going to be people drinking or carousing around or, messing with my livestock and so forth. So I think maybe, and again, maybe this is a Tyler, I don't know if it's a question even, but, just in terms of letting those grazing folks know that, hey, these are cool folks. These are good people that are going to be in the area, utilizing the trail or the path or the route. And, maybe it's just going to take time, right? That they have good experiences over so many years with the trail folks that they realize, hey, these guys are cool. These guys are not, they're not causing trouble in my area. They're not messing with my livestock or my stuff or my ranch or whatnot. Whereas we haven't had a ton of experience, right? With formal trails, public access trails. So maybe people have misperceptions about what those trails might be and what those trail users might be. So if either of you want to comment on that, again, I don't think it's really a question, but just kind of some comments, and feel free.
Thank you, Tom. I do agree. A lot of trail people, they are very interested in maintaining the land, making sure that the land is well kept. I do see individuals that are out there that take advantage of opportunities that are there, especially when it comes to camping. People do go out there. And then there are some individuals that will pretty much, they will leave the land better than that they came in, and they will pick up the trash and the surrounding trash. If there's any type of litter, if there's any type of dump, they will pick up after themselves and beyond. And I do feel like there are people that, the recreational individuals, people that do like to hike, they are there to preserve. They are out there to make the world even better than what they came in with.
Oh, okay, Tyler. Awesome. Well, thank you both, Stevie and Tyler, for sharing. We really appreciate that. A couple of great presenters offering some really insightful perspective on the topic of land and land use as it pertains to trails on the nation. So, thanks very much, gentlemen. All right. Well, we're going to move on, and we're going to get to our next presenter in just a moment. I want to give a shout out to a few folks who chimed in and said good morning. We're really honored to have co-talker John Kinsel listening in this morning, and his son Ron up in Lukachukai. So, Yate Abina, good morning to you two guys up there in probably snowy LA this morning. And also Brandon Benale chiming in from Salt Lake City. So, Yate, Brandon. great cyclist. And good morning to Mr. Benali. So if anybody else wants to say hello anytime, feel free to just jump in and say hello on Facebook or YouTube there and join the conversation. So yeah. All right. I also want to point out before we, actually, let me throw out a trivia question and then I'll show you this trail guide and then we'll turn it over to Nelsa, who's going to introduce our next panel. So here is the question. So Raiji, be ready to monitor this. Here is the question. This is kind of a question that if you were listening in yesterday, you might have heard the answer to this. What community, actually, what is the name of the trail system in Crown Point that you heard about yesterday that is now the home of the only collegiate mountain biking team on the Navajo Nation? Oh, yeah, amazing stuff there. So what is the name of the community trail system? We heard from Daniel Vandiver briefly yesterday, and they have a really cool name for a really amazing new community trail system that's happening out there. So Raiji and Aaron, be on standby for an answer from somebody. We did mention this yesterday, so see if anybody caught that one. This is a really cool system. If you haven't been out to Crown Point out on the eastern side of the nation lately, go check that out. Really, really cool. All right, just want to give a quick plug for the Navajo Nation Trail Guide. If you haven't got a copy of this yet, there's tons of copies of this all over the nation, probably in a chapter near you. There's a bunch of these at the Navajo Nation Museum, Navajo United Way, OPVP's got a stack. So if anybody wants a stack in your community and don't have one yet, hopefully let's try to cross paths. Maybe we'll see you in Monument Valley in a couple weeks. Take a box of these home and share with your community. This has amazing information about trails all over the nation, both in local communities, some of the long distance routes like Chuska and so forth. There's also stuff about the parks in here. Really, really good stuff. So check it out if you haven't seen it yet, or if you want some to share in your community. It's got, like I say, information and maps. Here's a little Chuska map, for example. Just really good stuff. Here's Buklabato. We're about to hear about these guys from Melissa Kelly here in a second. So, Navajo Nation Trail Guide. It's also on the Navajo Yes website if you want to just download an electronic version. All right. We're going to turn it over to Nilsa Curley, who is going to introduce our next presenters. So, come on down, Nilsa. By the way, do we have an answer yet over there, Raiji? All right. So, looking for that Crown Point trail system. What is the name of that trail system? If you get that, shoot us the answer.
All right, so Nelson and I like to introduce our next three speakers. This panel is going to be about the living and learning of the lessons of the community. So this one is kind of being of like success stories along in these communities. And then Nelson, if you'd like to introduce our three.
So we got three presenters here. So in person today, we have Earl Sombrero. He's the manager of Tzapikin around in Inscription House, Chapter House. We also have Melissa Kelly of the Buklabato Community Trail System, and she will be on call. She's the president there for the chapter. And also chapter manager Arthur Bavaro from Nananza chapter.
It's a hard one.
And he will be on call. And so that is around Fruitland and Kirtland, New Mexico.
Oh, Yate. Yate Bene. My name is Earl Sombrero. I don't think the cheating in Schleppy Petoni, but she's chinky or any that she chaded out little land nationale. Tsapi kin holiede or a yashed a the a hook is a dan slog at Nes nach a doi which it holds just yat 8 are not such a shit national tracing. Are they dice not sagi ado in the da. Elkedan zade. Are not a bedak agit are yard a penny hitty need and lead or lay the choir. A yahan so hot a dollish no quid is canna a yahan and linished elia a yadide. khan so de keot and de khan so jada be adola ben ya khata de yagi digi lato ben ich odi khait ya lato nanish in lado ado in de lato khait ya pohnet za pension listo in de khat ishin peson lishin da alkin chanligi bach odi shit no dish ya ben ya khat quite in khati na to lato ben kis na di ne ben ich odi shit no big hot di ben bi in long kont khat ni yan lisli ko ako is my presentation going to be on or? So she she be ni khashna lido le tsago she yati nige be sanat les angi han so tratna znel behoran so angi ben nagi jo kwai ya han so tkin leni be khadi yasali natin na kili de milia jdo ba atabit ata na khata ado in de big ahoy yasali yati aje ke yan leni han so abets anat ba at adot so kwai tkin leni be khadi dod nil jada be bekat na ado in de han so de nabil kewit enigi jo yot ido le khat no ben ni na chko hot abel ba tidi kes and lido be na hit kha hol ji ko ita Tratnas Nellen Lesha Man Long large and Satan Le Martha Tate do in the Kion Satagi Geraldine Chi Ado in the Sha Chain Long Chance in Nodestine Ado Shanadin Long the Bebenant Jerry Begay Ado in the Bishbans and Lenny Herman Daniels do in the Ita a Kion Satana Benas of Benat Anning Lenny Mr. Jonathan Naz Jo Elkine Ado Kadon Mr. Tom Riggenbach jo yan resha toje khan so baal khan lo khan za kholji ita belke da sin jo khai bel banda sit do big khan so beson leni da beja da yasali ita ko ado in de na ki de ben yaj do ba anas ata hi kha da silken leni do je ken leni no setlen leni gi jo ajina nishin leni shi go banda de gi el to ba beja huilia khan so natin ya khot en khan dashnish ado en rede nan sa den en lo han so di thin to niligi khait ya han so ben ya hasht out do niln lido in de khait ya tzazen leni nazi do le no ya cho aji nan tkino Atlan the more as Lee Elchin, Linny Han so did that or Slito Shan Bonet Hashata the Doslito Tin Linny Bilhat the Doslis no jo hot out ho lasali ado ben nachiko Han so did Scoto nature beat the more down Lenes not the more biga honan Linny hat no jo ho jish. Oko Hanson de yatil kedo chikain leni hanson ni kaijo tra de moje el trompet hadil yasali ako di beson leni hade la beson leni chido no oko the rage hanso Navajo Transitional Energy Company no jo aj hanso da niche aj beson leni kont be bini kids leo ade so the media ni ka what Ado in de an hikoje na re inal traan leni na hat lahan lekon han so na re han so junk food taxes ne jo han so healthy the nation act is no jo aje inal tra han so ye khauti la aje na hat la ni je when da aje do han so do sa beja di yan lo kon do bin na che ko han so di tzazen leni jo tzazen leni yesi ben dashil nish nakil la check an go ado la ye go jo al ke zen lo hot thin lini bel khadil ya jo hot Aini nanish ilya ako je ado ben nache yalchin lin no selim lin in khanad nisho khan so khale de moja as leo khadi lasadni ko ein khni khaz ado tapi ken khaz ando ahot anan shin lini ilya do ahot abel khati ilya konje be bansi keto ba la nani zen long khalchen in der de nabel kehit in khait au da yen nache et hotel zehen lido le ko khay bayat eto le bits isen lini da na den tran lido le jo hot jo yisi ben ni nache ko hot tin lini be khati yasalin li ko kon ko dis gen de hot ba be bahaz inil zen a hol shin li ko kon ele ben kil kodishnet hot shint ben kil nasa shnet do le ade she's not on degi. So and that's what I kind of mentioned in the beginning, but it was also working with Mr. Reckenbach here. He gave us directions to certain individuals that we needed to work with, and one of the individuals that we worked with was able to provide training to our summer youth group for a whole week, basically telling us how to go about layering the different types of the 2 types of gravel that we use to do the trail, and then also digging the trench to make the trail. So our priority, I guess, throughout the whole deal was making the trail as green and then also as efficient as possible. So so the first step that we took was, of course, doing a land withdrawal. And I know that a lot of people are hesitant to go through certain processes with the land department, but if you work the proper channels and then work with the proper people, the land withdrawal process is really easy. Although the first step in that to initiate that process would be a chapter resolution, which we adopted to do a land withdrawal around the chapter track, outside the chapter track actually. And once we got that land withdrawal, we also we started the initiation of the cultural inventory process, and then also the biological, and then also the what they call the I think it was the water surface or something like that. There's another evaluation that had to take place. So there was 3 different clearances that we had to go through, and that all took about a whole week to get through all that process. So anything is possible if you set your mind to it, or if you go through the proper channels to get to where you want. And then funding sources, we were able to allocate, we wrote a grant to NTEC, Navajo Transitional Energy Company, who was able to provide us with $7,000 towards the project. And then we also budgeted using our Healthy to Nation Act funds, or the junk food taxes that are collected and distributed to 110 chapters. So we used in a total about close to $60,000, which includes not just the material but also the labor as a whole. So our total came out to about like $67,000, $68,000. And we did it. And the trail is available for everybody. It's open to everybody. It was also, like I said, in partnership with Navajo Yes, and then with NTEC, with the junk food tax, and then with the Navajo Nation Vice President at the time, Mr. Nez, our Honorable Council Delegate, Mr. Daniels, and then my chapter officials, the former President, Martha Tate, my current President, who was the Vice President, Dan Geraldine Chi, and then my current Vice President, who was Secretary Treasurer at the time, Chancey Nodestein, and then also our grazing official, who was able to give us some insight on how to start this whole process, which is Jerry Begay. So much appreciation goes out to these partners, and then of course myself and then my staff as well. So that's how we were able to get to where we are at with our trail today. So our trail is less than a mile. It's like 0.8 miles long. It's basically was referred to by the Summer Youth students as a walk in the trail, or a walk in the sage trail, dedicated in 2019, and it's open to all. So if you want to stop by the chapter, we can give you a tour, or we can walk the trail with you. Mira?
Stick around, we might have questions for you too.
Hello, Yad She'e Rajabike Shan. I just want to announce the next presenter. She is from Baklabato, New Mexico, and her name is Melissa Kelly. She is also the president of Baklabato chapter, and there is a nice place that we've been working out there, which is the Baklabato trail system, and she was going to present that on this next presentation. Okay, thank you. I don't know. Melissa, are you on? Yeah.
Go ahead and.
Hello, hi. I hope you all can hear me. This is Melissa Kelly. I'm the chapter president for the Baklabato chapter. If you don't hear me, I must be in a very bad location.
No, we got you.
We can hear you? Oh, okay. You know what?
Great.
I'll try. Yeah, I'll speak before we hit a bad location again. So there's a trail in the Baklabato. Now, I think the topic is lesson learned from these trails. So the trails are appreciated and they're used by all our community members. Not only community members, but there's other people from the surrounding communities that come out that take walks and they take their bikes out on the trail, which shows us as community members and as leaders that there is a need for trails out in our community. Now, to get these trails in place, I would recommend a lot of communication with the community people themselves. There's a lot of permittee holders out there, and some of them don't like to see runners or walkers in their backyard or whatnot, although they don't use that area a lot. But to me, I would recommend next time we do more trails, I would like a public hearing, just let the people know what our intentions are and who the trails are for, and that we're good people out on the trail. I think that's what they need to know. That's what I've been told, is let us know before you build anything, and we'll put in our 10%, and eventually they'll support it. So trails in the Baklabato are awesome. So if you ever have a chance to go out there, and then thank you to Tom and Raiji, Aaron, for hosting these bike runs and fun runs. It's bringing more people out around to that area, and it brings people from afar to see our trails, and then maybe in the future they plan to come back with their families. So Trails are, yeah, and then there's also a bike project. That's George, if you can hear him. He says mentioned a bike project, so I'll mention that. So yes, we have activities going on in the Clabato, and I'm, as president, I'm very happy and glad for our community to have such a beautiful trail. It's really a stress reliever. If you've had a bad day or having a bad morning, just go out on the trail and release all those troubling thoughts or whatnot. So regardless of people say my land, we move on, and hope to see more trails in the area. I mean, it explores the people with diabetes and whatnot on the rise. We do need to be out walking more. So yeah, that's my input here. I don't want to keep everybody's time up here. So can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, real good.
Okay, Tom. Okay, I'm sitting by the freeway here. All right, good job, Tom, Aaron,
Okay.
Reggie.
All right, that's
and the
awesome.
group there. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, thank you for the good work. Your ever tiring efforts to keep us running and walking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
Melissa.
The reception's going in and out. But
yeah, the reception's in and out, so, but I'm listening.
Okay, the next presenter, his name is Arthur. He is from the Nanza, and he has some pretty good success stories about his trail. They're making like a river trail down by the river, the San Juan River. So let's hear from Arthur. Are you on the call, Arthur? Hey, Arthur, can you hear us?
Okay, I can hear you.
All right. Take the floor now, Arthur. Okay, we can see you now, Arthur.
Start?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm Arthur Bavaro, the Ninanazad chapter coordinator. I am the organizer of our recreational activities here at the chapter, and one of the things that we have done is in 2020 we coordinated with the abandoned mine lands, and during their process of reclaiming a old mine site, we took advantage of that situation and we created a river trail. That river trail extended to a certain spot, and we had a stairway that connected the river trail. But since that time, we've had extended the trail. If you've ever been to the Arizona Public Service Four Corners Power Plant, you cross a bridge from the Fruitland Post Office on your way to the power plant. And when you do this, you will take a look to the right side and you'll see a trail that extends up to the bridge. So that trail starts from the Hogan, which is located on the chapter property, and extends to the bridge. So we continue that trail over to the top side so that we created a circle. One of the things that we considered when we were constructing our trail was the wildlife. It's a river trail, so naturally we have ducks and geese and other types of birds who habitat in that area. So keeping that in consideration, we try not to completely clear the vegetation out. In coordination with the Navajo Nation Wildlife and the EPA, we were told that it was okay to remove non-native species vegetation. So the Russian olive, the salt cedar, and there's an elm that's not a natural species. Those were trees and vegetations that we had removed in order to make it a little bit more appealing and a little bit more conducive to a walking trail. So that's what we have. The trail is sectioned off with a field fence, and there's also a sort of a turnstile that they call it livestock turnstile that limits how people can come in. One of the reasons why we did that was to prevent wheelbarrows from being pushed, over and dumping ash, trash, debris, whatever you have over the cliffside. So those are some of the things that we put into consideration in developing our trail. Because of the way the trails are constructed, it's open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Currently, we are having only pedestrian traffic going through there. However, we created a service road that leads down to the trail. The trail is a little bit over 2 miles in its entirety. We're continuing to do improvements to the trail, and we're working on that trail. There were two articles in the newspaper. Somebody spoke about media, advertising your project using the media is very constructive in that people who normally don't see your trail will realize that, they have an opportunity to contribute to it. So a lot of times publicizing your project has its advantages because you find other sources of revenue and other sources of input where you could modernize, upgrade, or improve your trail. And so basically that's what we have in our community. And we call it the Ninanazan River Trail. At this point, there's 4 little stations there. And one of the improvements that we're going to be doing to it is we have Navajo Nation Fish and Wildlife in our area, and they're planning on creating a boat docking station so they can go and launch their boat, retrieve their boats. And then partnership, we gain from that more exposure and a boat dock from it. So that's one of the things that's coming up. So we're looking forward to that possibly in March. So, and that's the extent of my presentation. Thank you.
I got some questions for you, Arthur. So my first question is, how did you go about getting land users' consent?
I'm sorry, the audio is not very good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
So I got a question for you and And Melissa, if you're honest, you can answer. One of the questions was, get, how were you guys able to get land users consent?
Good morning again. So I guess for the most part, it takes communication. Communication is key in all decisions that are made. This is where we work with our grazing official. Our grazing official is a person who has extensive knowledge of who the users of the land are in our community. So he identified who the grazer or whose permit would be affected by the land withdrawal that we were requesting. And so what we did was, after that person was identified, we met with that person and we presented our idea, and we kind of just talked about how it would benefit everybody. And then also that it was just going to be a matter of just a little 6 feet wide trail that's going to go all the way around, which is not going to really impact the area that much. Also, not going to impact the vegetation as well. So, I guess in Navajo that would be ado la be banch o kako. Ado in the da e hajo the nabet ishan it just send jo out a bohonet. I guess also in another aspect is it's also about the attitude and behavior, how you approach people. That plays a role in where you want to go or what you want to achieve in this whole process. So I think that kind of answers our land user consent, but key was to work with our grazing official.
Okay. So I got one more question for you guys. How hard was it to get a land withdrawal?
So, like I said, land withdrawal process for us was we had a 1 week turnaround, and in anything, if you want to get something, you have to be on it 100%, and then you have to remind people constantly what you're asking for and why you're asking for that. And so knowing who the actual appropriate contacts would be with the land department. In this case, Mr. Halona. Mr. Halona is an asset in all the projects that I have in my community. So him being able to tell me who I needed to contact and who I need to keep bugging as far as getting our land withdrawal process to fully to fruition. So basically knowing who the key players would be at the land office would be a start. And then also, again, I stress to people that it's all about having courtesy, patience, and then also being able to approach people in the most humblest way possible.
Okay. So Arthur, I have a question for you. This one just came in. Your trail. Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. It was for you actually. But maybe you too, Arthur. Since you're just kind of related to this one. You guys is both paved actually. You guys have like gravel and pavement, and it seems like you guys are the only few trails on the res that has pavement done to it. And why did you guys decide to go that route? And was it expensive or hard?
So our trail is, like I said, we try to think of the most efficient way to make, I guess, go green. And saying that is that we created a trail to where it wasn't deviating the rainfall from certain places, and then also not not for the ground not to be able to get the rainfall that it needs to keep the vegetation around it growing. So like I said, we used two types of gravel. We used one that was coarsely ground, and then one that was kind of finer than the first one. So we had to have it set at a certain pitch for the rain to fall, and then also kind of come off of the trail at an even distribution to the ground below. So our trail is not necessarily paved. It's just basically just gravel. That's it. So it just works sort of kind of like what do you call that? Trying to find a word. It works like a filter. So it filters the rainfall so that when it gets to the ground, it's pretty much good for everything that grows around it. So we decided to go that route just because it's easier to maintain, and then also it doesn't need that much maintenance and so forth on it. So that's why we decided to go with that.
Okay, Earl, we have another question for you. So do either of your chapters, the other person that's online as well, do either of your chapters have plans for more trail development?
I would say, of course. I don't know if you've guys been to our neck of the woods. I would refer to our area as God's country. If you have not, I invite you to come out to Western Navajo, into the area of Tzapikin, Shanto, Navajo Mountain, and Lachi'i. We have some of the most amazing views of the canyons, the mesas, the mountains, and so forth. And of course, we are planning to have more trails within our area, not just walking or running trails, but also bike trails as well. So like I said, if you have not been to our community, I invite you to come over. Stop by the chapter and we will try to arrange a little tour for you.
All right, that's some pretty good stories. So one comment we found on Instagram, or not Instagram, I'm sorry, Facebook, was, Sabraro, you have very good Navajo. So everybody's give you compliments on that. But other than that, some good success stories with those trails. Hope to see you guys' trails in the future, and let's keep on continue them. Those were pretty good stories. Thank you.
Yeah, that was so awesome, and it's always great to hear that new development will be in the process in the future, you know, not only for, you know, everybody, but for, you know, our children as well. So our next presenter, we have a video for her. She's another amazing, inspirational individual that has overcome many challenges in her life. She's another great example of including her children in running and hiking and all events that she does. She's an educator, she's a mom, she's a trail runner. Her name is Candace John.
Yad she Candace Horaxinishia. Kentlachini Nishla, my dish Gizny Bushes Chain, Twittage Ine Dashache, Kiani Dashanella, Deeds Our Sananishla. Hello, my name is Candace Horax. I am a Red House, born for the Coyote Pass people. My grandfather's clan is Bitterwater, and my paternal grandfather's clan is Towering House. My grandparents are from Loop, Moonavi, and the Gap, Arizona. I grew up in Bitter Springs and went to school in Page, Arizona. I rode the bus for 45 minutes to get to school. I grew up in a large family. I'm the second oldest of 7 children. My mother has 26 grandchildren. We're a pretty active family. We love exploring the outdoors together. If we're not running, we're hiking or playing in the water. I remember a while back, Navajo Yes had a kids marathon at Monument Valley. The kids logged their own miles, ran for a month, and the last mile they would complete together at Monument Valley. Being in Page, Tom Riggenbach allowed my children to participate virtually, and we ran on our own, and he actually sent us t-shirts and medals. My kids were so excited that they got medals. They've loved running ever since. My daughter and son are cross-country runners, and my two little ones are in a running club where they run 1 mile races. We run together and love to cheer for one another. It's become a family thing. And because we run, we're always adventure ready. I've always loved Navajo Yes because of how much they're community oriented and really focused on our youth. I love the trail initiative. Every year, my family hikes the Navajo Mountain to Rainbow Bridge Trail, and I'm always grateful for Navajo Yes and their youth volunteers that help maintain the trail. It's hard enough to hike that trail with big packs on, but to add manual labor on top of it, that's a lot of hard work. Huge and sago for making our trails beautiful. I know my family appreciates it. My favorite and my daughter's favorite race is the Navajo Yes Monument Valley Half Marathon and Ultra Race. To see the mittens is like seeing it for the first time every time. It's very humbling as you run past them because they make you feel so small. And there's a connection you feel when you think, wow, I'm running where my ancestors once stepped. And the coolest moment is when you've earned that view on top of Mitchell Mesa and you can see for miles. It makes you appreciate being alive. It makes you so grateful. It grounds you and it makes you feel like you're in a dream at the same time. Nijoniya Nihima, Mother Earth is just beautiful. I think it's important for our youth to feel that awe, to unplug and reconnect through their feet. They need to experience all that Mother Earth has to offer them and show them. They need to earn that view through the sweat of their brow so that they can have a sense of accomplishment, a deeper understanding of who they are, and to feel that anything is possible. Thank you, Navajo Yes, especially Tom Riggenbach and my friend Neil Securley. They are running inspirations to us. I've tried to keep up with Tom in the Antelope Ultra, but he was fast. He passed me at Horseshoe Bend. And I love Nilsa. She's always been a humble and beautiful friend of mine who does so much to motivate and inspire. They both do a lot to encourage us to get out there, to make healthy goals, and to live an active lifestyle. We need more people like that in our communities. A lot of heart and soul goes into a Navajo Yes run. There's always a thoughtful message with a prayer in the beginning. The fires are stoked and the local Hogan doors are open. The volunteers are the friendliest and most energetic people around. And after you're done running, they refuel you with fry bread and entertainment. The experience is truly one of a kind. My daughter, on her way home from a Navajo Yes MV half marathon, said, "Mom, you know what my favorite thing about running is?" I said, "What?" She said, "When you run early in the morning and you can see the sun come up, it's really pretty."
Yeah, Candy, amazing story, huh? Wow. Very inspiring. All right. Well, we are still waiting for a correct answer. We have stumped the audience on this question of what is the trail system in Crown Point called? It's a great, spectacular community-based trail out there. Runs through the part of the college campus out there. It's really, really, really cool. So if anybody has the answer for that one, this is the one that Daniel Vandiver mentioned yesterday. Be sure to give us the answer. Right, G? Nobody's got it yet, right? Okay. Man, maybe we'll have to up the ante here and make this prize extra special. Hey. All right, so here's the next trivia question. This one's a little bit easier, and you also heard about this trail yesterday. And it's not a specific single track trail like some of these that we've been experiencing lately, but it's a long distance route that runs almost 80 miles. And it has one terminus in the area of Mexican Springs and Asaya, and the other up around the Red Valley and Cove area. So what is this long distance route? It's a route that utilizes existing forest roads and provides established campsites, rest areas, benches, ramadas, picnic spots. So really, really cool amenities along that route. So does anybody know what that is? Also, send that one to Raiji over there on Facebook, and we'll see if anybody knows that one. So we're looking for the Crown Point Trail System, as well as this long distance route, the mountain bike route through the beautiful spot of the res. Boy, almost gave it away. Hey. All right, see if anybody can come up with that. All right, also want to introduce our very special next guests. This is going to be a group from Navajo Parks, and I want to give a quick background on this before we turn it over to Mr. Martin Begay. And the focus of this presentation is going to be on a collaboration between Navajo Parks and the Navajo Yes nonprofit group, and it's in reference to a project and a grant that they did jointly to the National Parks and Recreation Association, NRPA, Recreation and Parks Association. All these acronyms these days. So Mr. Begay is going to give just a quick word on Navajo Parks generally. And then Sean Livingston from Navajo Parks and Clara Kelly from Navajo Yes will give a more detailed breakdown of the actual NRPA project and what that's going to entail. It's going to be some really amazing, cool new amenities and trails within the tribal parks. So look forward to seeing this transpire over the next 3 years. So, Mr. Begay, it's great to have you here, sir, and glad you could make it through the snow out there in Window Rock this morning. Oh, God.
Thank you. Kind of an echo in there. Thank you, Tom, and I appreciate the time to give a few remarks for this session that you're having today. Regarding the grant that we were successful in getting from the National Recreation and Parks Association. And would like to thank my former assistant, Vanessa Vandeveer, for putting this together. And so she deserves all the credit for getting this grant for the Parks and Recreation and the Navajo Nation. First of all, my name is Martin Begay. I'm a SiiHasin. I don't last was chain to the chain that's a chain or to about the Sinale. But I had an answer later, you see, Nasha. And I've been with Parks and Recreation as the director for about 10 years now. And I really have the honor to be a part of this organization. And I just want to go over briefly what our plans are from Parks and Recreation. And then Mr. Livingston will give more detail on what the grant is about. But when this grant was put together, the intention was to address some of the issues that we have here on the Navajo Nation. One of those is health issues, and then also social problems that we have, and also the lack of economic opportunities on the Navajo Nation. And so what we want to do from Parks and Recreation is to build on that and to develop the trails network that we call the Neck Canyon Trails. And most of this is basically for the Western Agency. And the tribal parks that we have in the Western Agency are Little Colorado River, Marble Canyon, Lake Powell, and Monument Valley Tribal Parks. And so those trails that we have in the tribal parks are put there for the enjoyment and use by our Navajo people and also visitors that come to the parks. What we want to do is to build on that, to work on developing more trails, improving the trails that we have, and also to provide more activities for the visitors that we get. Basically, what we're looking at is more outdoor recreation opportunities like hiking, biking, camping, and so forth. So other activities that we want to do. So, and also to improve the trails by including more amenities, such as shade structures, ramadas, picnic tables, and so forth, so that people can learn more about what the Navajo people are. And so the interpretive program that we will have with this program is geared to that purpose, which is to develop more signage so that the people who use these trails learn more about the Navajo people, our culture, and also our traditions. We have the plants that we use for our lives and the Navajo people, and so we want to give this message out to the Navajo people, as well as cultural practices such as herding sheep, riding horses, and so forth, and so that people can be more appreciative of what the Navajo people and the Navajo Nation is about. And so with that, I'm going to be closing, and I would like to pass this on to Mr. Livingston that we brought on, and he is very willing to assist us with this project. So without further ado, thank you for the opportunity, Tom, for this presentation, and I'd like to thank again for Navajo Yes. Thank you very much.
Yate, as my supervisor had mentioned, my name is Sean Livingston. I used to twins, Crystal, New Mexico. I'm also an elected official for one of the local chapters, and I was fortunate enough to start working for Parks and Recreation. It's been going on almost a year now. Before that, I had different avenues of ventures, and this is the first time I'm working with Parks and Recreation. It's been a very interesting tour so far. I am responsible for the Bull Canyon Park Recreation area, the Saya Lake. So that is my duties as far as working with Parks and Recreation. I will do a small presentation, and we'll go through the slideshow. Okay. The new trails efforts in the tribal parks, NRPA projects. NRPA is a National Recreation and Park Association. It's a not-for-profit corporation located in Ashburn, Virginia. This grant is a 3-year grant. We're in the first year already. NRPA, I took in a couple of main factors off the MOU with from NRPA, and then the response on that would be from the Navajo Yes. Grants made through this program are intended to support advancement of community-driven system-level strategies for equitable park access that improves the environmental resilience and health of communities. Support park improvement projects and or planning projects that provide investment to low-income communities, people with disability, high COVID mortality rates. Navajo Yes, meeting with community advisory groups, local chapter administration, chapter government, chapter elected officials, grazing official, Club C, local community permittee holders, community members on Navajo Yes projects within their community. Navajo Yes, they had several projects that were, several welcome back in different areas in communities throughout the summer and fall of 2021. And these events included bike repairs, live music, roundtable discussion. And these communities were in Cameron, Bordeway, Gap, Ojilpato, Willamette Valley, Navajo Mountain, and Leechee. Identifying projects, Navajo Yes. First one is the LCR, Little Colorado River Tribal Park. The old Highway 64 to Grand Canyon for a pedestrian pathway and possibly a bike trail. This trail is 2.5 miles. This will entail adding some trailheads along with ramadas, benches, panels, frisbee golf, horseshoe pits, plus a parking area. This 2.5 miles is the old road bed. South side of the new Highway 64 and the other side of the trail is the old wagon route, which is about 3.5 miles. Both start at the upper overlook. This Highway 64 is from Cameron going west to Grand Canyon. LCR, number 2 project is the LCR Rim Trail. It's 3 miles of trail and trailheads. Number 3 would be the Rainbow Trail. There are 2 trails located in the Rainbow Trail from the Navajo Mountain to Rainbow Bridge. Restoration of trails, trailhead improvement plus new trailheads and extension of Wildcat Trail and Lee Clyde Trail. This will be the major work of restoration of the Rainbow Trail. The 4th one is the Willamette Valley Trailhead and Trail Extension. NRPA, conduct local community outreach through web, social media, and local press release to help promote the projects and community engagement in accordance with the press and promotional. Navajo Yes, they have been promoting through Facebook, through email, flyers posted within communities, public event races, presentation, trail guides, and their newsletter articles, school educated outreach, promo items, partnership with other programs, Navajo Nation Parks, Office of the President, Vice President, Navajo Nation's Special Diabetes Program, community members being involved. These are some of the pictures that are on the screen are from various parks within the project with NRPA. The welcome back event were held, like I said earlier, in the various park communities. These events included bike repairs, live music again, and roundtable discussion. So these parks, the pictures are being, you are seeing are from LCR Pedestrian Pathway. They are also from the LCR Rim Trail, and they're also from the Rainbow Bridge Trail. The one you see right now is from the LCR Pedestrian Trail, and also the Willamette Valley. This is the LCR Rim Trail. And this is the LCR Pedestrian Pathway. This trail is the old Highway 64 that led from Cameron to Grand Canyon. This is a really unique trail. I've actually seen this trail. It's a doable trail, so this will be a pedestrian walkway and also a possibility of a bike trail. And I believe this is at the LCR pedestrian pathway also. And another photo of the LCR. I thank you, and this is my information here, and our phone number here to the main office. It's 928-871-6647. If anyone has any question on any of the Navajo Nation park, this is the number to call as far as in reference to overnight camping, hiking, permits. So this is the number you would call. This is my email down below if you have any questions, or I can forward your question to the appropriate individual. It's my first two initial, my last name at navajo-nsn.gov.
Okay, so our next speaker is Claire Kelly. She is an amazing woman, very knowledgeable about the whole reservation. So let's give it up for Claire.
Say Claire Kelly Guinness, yeah. Not in Jersey, though, second son of Betra, no, so, though, Conda Nebakea, Baka, Disdin, Doba, Sinaha go, Kahastin, though, niceness. Although, historic preservation, Days Nenegi, Sinanis, Isla, though, Navajo, yes, Ajik, best niceness. I'm a volunteer. So anyway, just to follow up a little bit from Mr. Begay and Mr. Livingston, I'll just recall how this project has unfolded so far. The first thing that we did was to organize a community advisory group, a handful of people from local communities who are also involved in, engaged in outdoor recreation. And you've met two of them already, Nielsa Curley and Mr. Williams, what's his first name? Paul, no. Lewis Williams, sorry. Senior moments here. Anyway, so then the Navajo Yes, working with the core advisory group, organized a series of meetings at the chapter houses in surrounding communities, the communities that surround these western parks. And the purpose was to get input from the residents about how the parks can do better for them, how they will be more attractive and engaging to local people. But we also sort of sweetened the pill of yet another public meeting by having the meetings embedded in events. And so these were involved live music, some bike repair. I think we had some fun runs, is that right? And so that then from the meetings within these events, the emphasis that we understood was the trailheads, that a lot of the things that people want in the parks could be located at the trailheads. And it's almost like what it adds up to would be making trailheads many of the trailheads sort of like a mini park within a park or an oasis. And some of the things I think were a little bit of a stretch here, like swimming pools, but maybe someday, if we can get some more water out of the river, settle our water rights. Anyway, with that, we have proceeded on this first round of local guidance, where we'll continue to be going back to the communities with progress reports and get more feedback. But we've started work in 2 of the parks, the Little Colorado Gorge and Monument Valley. And at Little Colorado, we started by engaging with land users, and that's ongoing. And we've heard about the complexities of that process elsewhere earlier today. Meanwhile, but we've also had assessments of the 2 trails that we want to develop in the LCR, the Rim Trail and the old pedestrian, the old Highway 64 that will become a new pedestrian pathway, which is really great. Those 2 trails, the Rim Trail gives you sort of closer views of the gorge itself, and then you can back away by getting on that the pedestrian pathway to be, and get a real overview of the country around the gorge. So that's going to be a real attractive space when it's done. Meanwhile, in Monument Valley, that's where we've put in a good deal of work with Raji and Aaron and Tom all spearheading, and Nilsa very much there, and to do a good deal of work that's still ongoing on the Lee Clyde Trail, and we did some work on the Bobcat Trail, where we've improved the trailheads. There's more to come, and we'll be extending the Lee Clyde Trail, and then and so we've got a good head start here. As the year warms up, we'll be going back to Navajo Mountain and working on the 2, the Rainbow Trail, and then the other one around the south side, which has been really neglected. And so that will be work in the forthcoming work for the year. And so there's along with ongoing guidance from the people themselves. We have a couple more years left of this grant, and there's still a lot to be done, but we feel like we've made a good start here, and that the communities that we've been working among have been gracious and helpful and enthusiastic, and it's an energizing thing for everybody. So we're really looking forward to the upcoming work season. SiiHasin.
Yeah, Clara and Sean, and Mr. Begay. We'll keep the floor open here on this topic. If anybody has questions that they'd like to shoot to any of these 3 folks from Navajo Parks, and Clara from Navajo, yes. She kind of sells herself short as a volunteer. Works nonstop for the cause of wellness on the nation. So we really appreciate it, Clara. Raji, any questions coming through from anybody on this? Raji is kind of monitoring our Facebook and YouTube pages, so if anybody has any questions, be sure to shoot those over there. Okay, cool. Lewis from Ancient Ways. Actually took some parks folks rafting last fall, I believe. Were you on that trip, Sean? No. Right. Good time. All right. Anybody else? I don't know if there's anything else that any of you three want to expound on as far as the project, as far as next steps, and maybe what folks can expect to see in the parks. Claire, do you want to touch on that a little bit? You probably have a pretty good idea of what's coming up immediately and in the summer months and so forth.
Actually, you're going to have to cue me, Tom. I'm not
All
sure
right.
what you have planned for except for the work on Rainbow and continuing work on the Monument Valley, and then we'll be getting into the whole, that's where we really will need to have work on the LCR.
Right. So yeah, it's going to be a really good summer, hopefully, of trail work in the parks. So again, it'll be somewhat dependent on how things come together over the next few weeks and months, but that's kind of the game plan. Raiji's coming this way with the phone. Hey. Okay, greetings from the LCR Park. All right. Yep. So we've got a, yep. Probably not. So the question is the horse route, the horse trail, which is one of the LCR trails, is it part of the project? And it is probably not going to be, but there's going to be a couple other projects down in the LCR park. I think we can remove this. And the two parks, the two trails in the LCR park will be the new pedestrian path. That's going to be a really cool project that Mr. Breguet has envisioned for a number of years, the old Highway 64, the historic Route 64 from Cameron to Grand Canyon. So that route's going to be established as a trail beginning this summer as part of the NRPA grant. And then there's also going to be some rim trail work down at LCR. So really exciting stuff at that area, in that community, and that park down there at LCR. So pretty cool. The pedestrian path is going to be just really an epic project. It's going to be something to really experience. It'll be several miles of old Highway 64, which is about 500 feet above the current highway. So you got a really cool perspective of the canyons below you there. Another question coming in, looks like.
Another question, maybe for Sean. So is there any plans to open up biking in the MV Park?
Biking?
Yes, biking.
Sean, and maybe, is Mr. Breguet still here?
No. Well, the biking will be part of the LCR pathway, walkway pathway. So my understanding is that's going to be part of the project for LCR, is to have a bike trail along with the walkway, and also possibly even looking into LCR to have a rentals of bikes to use on those trails. So there's really a lot of ideas that can go into this development of the LCR walkway. So that is most possibly will be part of the walkway, will be involved, also would be the bike path.
Okay, and if Mr. Breguet might have left the building, but if we can have him, he might be able to answer that question too. I know bikes in the park have been something that have been discussed at other parks, including Monument Valley as well. I believe that question came from Donnie, it looked like. Is that correct, Donnie Mose? Oh, and that would be something to definitely consider. It's really exciting possibilities. The other thing that Clara mentioned was the Rainbow Trail and the work on the historic Rainbow Trails. Those trails are going to be 100 years old in 2 years. So they're pretty spectacular, really historic wilderness backcountry routes. And there's going to be some really nice work done on those over the next couple of years. It's a 3-year grant that Parks is receiving. So this work is going to be done in stages, but it'll be really, really remarkable, I think, when it's done. The one thing, and maybe we can ask this as a trivia question, Aaron, be ready, hey, is one of the things that we did initially with the NRPA grant, this was in collaboration with parks and the park communities, was to do some research in terms of how many of the park visitors are local families, local Diné folks. And the findings were shocking. and the findings have really informed the whole planning for this whole project following that. And we'll throw this question out there then. Make a guess, folks. First person to guess the right number will be one of our winners here. What percentage of visitors in the Navajo tribal parks are non-local residents? Some of you have heard this before. You've heard this spiel, and you might have heard this number before. So Nilsa, Aaron, keep an eye on this. If anybody comes up with this number, it's a number that's going to kind of blow you away. And that number is kind of our benchmark now. It's kind of our goal is to change that number because the number is very, very high for non-locals. And of course, they're all welcome, and we're don't have any problem with folks who are not from the nation, but what percentage are local residents? So what percentage are from off the nation? Okay, we'll have to get back on that one. That's a tough question. So one question that we might be able to touch on this afternoon is going to be funding for trails. That's a question that's just coming up, and that's another really major topic for folks. Junk food tax is a really great source of funding that we heard Earl talking about earlier this morning. Definitely a good possibility. Anybody with the number? What's our number here? I got 10%. 10%? Nope. Honestly, not even close. Sorry. 97%. Real close. Who's that? Okay. We'll call that a winner. 97%, 99%. Honestly, is the percentage, which is pretty amazing, right? So if you think about that, that means 1% of the visitors in our tribal park system are local residents. So the goal is to try to change that. The goal of this NRPA grant is to change that and to get more local families coming out. So like you heard Clara and Sean and Mr. Begay talking, is to try to create some amenities and some attractions within the parks that will make them really appealing to our own local families. So it's not just tourists who are coming to these amazing sites. You know, they can continue. Sure, that's great. But that our local families will also be able to experience those parks and be part of that park experience. So hopefully that'll be changing over the next few years, and that 99% will be coming down, and there'll be more and more local visitors coming. So, any other questions?
Can we get access to traffic studies on the Navajo Nation and also local communities on the Navajo Nation?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know if that might be something you want to tackle, Sean, or it might be an NDOT question. We're in NDOT's house today. Maybe we should ask them. They're talking about traffic studies. You want to touch on that, Sean? So, Nelson, why don't you give us the question again?
So the question again is, can we get access to traffic studies on the Navajo Nation and also local communities on the Navajo Nation?
That information will be best provided by the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation. They're the ones who do all the studies as far as traffic is concerned into various different parks and within the various different roadways throughout the Navajo Nation. So that would be a question for Department of Transportation to accurately give that numbers out.
We have a great question from Roman McCabe at San Juan College, and I think we're going to save it for Aaron this afternoon because he's going to be touching on this. But basically, Roman's question is, what is there that's going to be attractive, or how can you create something that's attractive for people who have lived in in our local communities their entire lives. So how do you get Kayenta folks to go to Monument Valley, to be honest, right? What is there that can be done or is there that will appeal to them? We know what appeals to visitors who are coming from other states or other countries. Monument Valley is an iconic place. But if you've lived in Kayenta your whole life, what gets you to go to Monument Valley for a Saturday event or a cookout on Mother's Day or whatnot? You know, how do you do that? How do you appeal to people to get to those parks? And that's a great question from Roman and Aaron. Are you up for that this afternoon? Yeah. All right. So Aaron's going to be talking about trail amenities, sort of like Mr. Begay was referencing a little bit ago. So we're going to hear a lot more about that. So that's going to be a really great presentation this afternoon. So any other questions coming in from anybody? Lots of great dialogue going on here. So remember, if you are wanting to be part of the final session of the day, the session is, where do we go from here? And it might mean your own local community, but it might be the Navajo Nation too. To Navajo, where's the future? What does the future look like 5 or 10 years down the road? So if you're interested in that discussion, let us know, and we'll shoot you the YouTube information or the Zoom information for that, and get you on that call so you can be part of the discussion. And we won't just be reading your words, but we'll be hearing your voices. So that'll be great this afternoon from 2:15 to 3. That'll be right after Vice President Leiser's words this afternoon. Okay, we're just about to start heading toward lunch. We're going to do a little bit of trail trivia. I'm going to give you a few park trivia questions. These are kind of the reverse questions from what we had yesterday. So there's going to be 3 questions related to 3 of the parks which are in this grant. That is LCR Park, Monument Valley Park, and Four Corners Monument Park. So here's the question. LCR, can you identify the 3 trails that go to the Little Colorado River down into the gorge? All right, there's 3 trails. We mentioned them all yesterday. Can you identify the 3 trails that go down to the Little Colorado River? That's the first question. Second question, Monument Valley. I know this one's going to be answered in no time flat. Can you name the 2 major trails in Monument Valley Tribal Park? They're both really well known. The one trail is the most traveled trail on the nation, the Navajo Nation, and the second trail is becoming very, very popular as well. So can you name the 2 Monument Valley trails? And then the third one is, can you name the 2 Four Corners Monument trails? There's 2 really cool trails that are within the Four Corners Monument. Can you name those 2 trails? So go ahead and shoot the answers on any of those. Did we get the Crown Point answer? Nobody's answered that one yet. All right. Somebody's got to be a friend or family member of Daniel Vandenberg. So if you are, text Daniel during lunch and ask him, what is the name of your trail system? Right, you may have one winner back there. Okay. Is it the correct answer? All right. And who's the winner? Mona Mose. All right. An MV local herself. And the answer is? All right. The Wildcat Trail and the Lee Clyde Trail. So congrats, Mona. We can deliver that one. Hey. So we got a winner there. And then the second one that was previously was the Chusca Mountain Bike Route. And the Chusca Mountain Bike Route, the correct answer to that, I don't know if this is fair. Hey, she's the chapter manager from one end of the trail, Christina Sam. So kudos to Christina. Go Dodgers. Hey. All right. Christina is the manager at the Mexican Springs Chapter House, which is at the southern end of the Chusca Mountain Bike Route. So very cool. Good job, Christina. Glad you're listening in today. For LCR. Okay, who's this? Oh, okay. All right. And then the Four Corners one. Yeah, what do you got, Reggie? Okay. Oh, not quite. NTUA is involved, but it's not the official name of the trail. It's a 2-letter word that is the answer to this question. So, if that helps. Hey. All right. I think we are ready to do our final act before we go to lunch. And you'll have time to do a little bit of research over the lunch break. See if you can find the 2 Four Corners trails and that third LCR trail. The third LCR trail. 2 of them are very well known, and the third one maybe not as much. So let's see if somebody could come up with that during the lunch break. And anything else over there? All right, Raiji, come on down. Raiji's going to introduce our last, it's a short video that will be going on here before we go to lunch.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. My name's Raiji, and I'd like to introduce our next presenter. He is a very inspirational guy, and he has very, very good stuff that he's done on the reservation, especially for himself. His name is Eli Nez Sosi, and we're going to show his video. It's really interesting, so enjoy it, guys. Thank you.
My grandfather used to wake us up very early, around about 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'd all go running. Very early in the morning is when the gods pass through. You want them to be able to hear your voice.
I was raised here, pretty much the old-fashioned lifestyle, working sheep, cattle, no modern-day conveniences, no running water, no electricity.
Being self-sufficient, there's ups and downs. We have to get the job done. Running was just part of the responsibilities that he had, and I think that's where he developed his running skills.
As a kid, I grew up on horseback, always riding horses. Going after the sheep, it's kind of like the kid's job is to follow the sheep around. Sometimes you went on foot. You had to run sometimes because, the sheep are getting away from you. I ran not for sport though, just because I had to.
In the year 2010, I took my dirt bike out for a spin that day. I made the foolish decision to go without a helmet. Somehow wiped out, busted my head open. I think I was in a coma for about the next month. It was pretty tough, relearning how to walk, how to chew, how to talk again. A couple of years down the road, I was diagnosed with epilepsy, and you had to be told how you're gonna live now.
I remember that day clearly. I woke up early in the morning. I couldn't sleep whatsoever. I was feeling a bit stressed. I figured I'd just take a short walk, like a morning hike. And I was halfway down the road, and I realized, I might as well pick up pace and, went into a jog and eventually jogged all the way home. I loved it so much. It was so stress relieving. The next day again, I started doing it consistently. Three weeks later, I found out there was a half marathon that was going to be held, so I signed up. I managed to finish the race. A few injuries from that race, but I was still 100% committed. Being a rancher, you always had that mentality to never give up. We know how to get things done, and you apply that same mindset to running. I don't have the luxury of a coach or, somebody to train with. All my training's done on my own. Changed from half marathon to full marathons and eventually gone to ultra marathons. I wasn't competing for a medal for the podium. I was running for the experience and for personal growth. If you're constantly chasing after the hard things, you're gonna eventually achieve what you're going after.
We asked him why he used to make us run, because it's almost like suffering. It meant for us to develop so that we're strong in heart and mind. And the more you run, the stronger you become.
All right. Just a couple more thoughts before we go to lunch. Nelson's going to share some winners with you in just a second here. So we do have some updates. I want to share a few questions and answer a few questions that we've been getting from some of you. We're getting a lot of comments and questions, which is awesome. So one of the questions was, are Lachee trails open to the public? And the question, or the answer to that would basically be that there are a couple of routes. There's a couple routes up in the chapter house area that are public trails. One of the things is that signage and trailheads, have not necessarily been established in some of those areas. So it's a little bit hard to designate what is public and what is more of a local land users area. So that question remains a little bit fuzzy, right? And it'll be something that'll kind of come up this afternoon in a couple of sessions, I think. A second question that also refers to land came from John, and it is it illegal for grazing permit holders to require payment for land use consent? And it actually is not, it is not legal, and it's not a common practice, I don't think, I hope, right? But it's definitely something where the permit holders do have some significant sway and some significant power in whether to give consent for use of that land for a trail. So it's something that, needs to be discussed. And one of the things that you heard Earl saying earlier, get those discussions going and get them going early in the process so that folks are able to address that and you have a good relationship with the permit holders. That's not always easy. That's more theoretical, right? But that would be a good goal. Does the tribe have a map of areas that are designated for grazing? That's a great question. And I think that's something that we need to look into. I don't know the answer to that right now. And I think probably going to the local chapter and asking that question of the grazing official might be an area where you would get a better answer, to be honest. So that might be something to consider, is going through the chapter to get that question answered locally. Is there a possibility for a disc golf course along these trails? And again, talk to Aaron. Hey, he's going to talk to us about that this afternoon, among other things. What about canyoneering along routes in Western Navajo? This person was referring to Tsabikin and Natsasan area, Shanto. It sounded like that general area of the nation. And that's something that can also come up this afternoon. Canyoneering has been kind of a complicated issue. There's not currently climbing allowed on the nation. Canyoneering is a little bit different category. So yeah, that's a really great question though, and definitely something that should be part of the 215 discussion. And we might even move that up a little bit, but we'll see this afternoon how that goes. We're got 45 minutes for discussion about what's next, so it should be really exciting. So we'll look forward to seeing you all after lunch. But Nelson's got a couple of announcements, and then we'll take our lunch break. Oh, we got a winner. Who? Karen Yazzie. Nice. And it is the Community Trail. So congratulations to Karen Yazzie, our winner for that one. And if you haven't been to Crown Point lately, go check it out. It's awesome work that those guys are doing out there. All right, Nelson.
And then we also have a couple winners as well for the LCR. Brittany Nez, the answer was Horse, Salt, and the Blue Spring Trail. Also in the Four Corners, is State Line and Dancing Trail, and the winner for that is Karen Yazzie. So thank you for participating. And I also want to point out this, we do have our calendar 2022. Various people that are in here, famous Jennifer Zani. So, Eli, you're there if you're still watching. Come on out to MV. You're always welcome to pick up one. What's that? And we are also going on to lunch now, and we will continue at 1 o'clock with Dr. Jill Jim from the Navajo Department in Nepal. Thank you.